Recording. Here we are. Good afternoon,
Hello.
morning, evening, blah, blah, blah. Hi.
Boa tarde.
Boa tarde, boa noite.
Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, just, when you run out of things to say in your mind, then it's a filler.
Okay.
So here we are with another crack in the code. It feels like number 1,800 and something. But
Seven.
It is number 777. Very good. And today we have some exciting guests, right?
Oh, yes. Two,
We're
actually.
Looking forward to that. Yes, I mean, we're growing every single week. We're going to have Michael Butler and Martin Jones from Captivate Hospitality. They've done a lot of things. I mean, they are huge in the industry. We're really looking forward to hear what they have to say about the current state of the F&B industry and where they think it's going to go. So, right, I mean, there's exciting one ahead. So let's shall we bring them in?
Yeah, let's go.
Yalla, okay, just like magic. Welcome, Michael. Welcome, Martin.
Welcome, guys.
Thank you for
Thank you
for joining us here. So please tell us. Obviously, Captivate is your thing right now. You want to tell us a little bit about obviously your backgrounds and your current plans and all that.
Oh, Michael, you go first.
You want me to go first?
Absolutely.
Thanks, Carlos, for arranging this call today. Background-wise, I will say I started as a pizza maker 30 years ago, and eventually worked at some airports as general manager. Did some consultancy work. As you know, I worked for Morgan's Hotel Group, Center Parks, and eventually was a hotel GM. And then went to work for Hyatt International, covering Europe and India as the director of food and beverage for that geographical area. So I think as I've given my background, we'll let Martin go first, and then we'll pick up the rest of that question, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay. Well, mine takes a bit longer because I'm a bit older than Michael. But I'm from Australia, and I studied music.
Right.
But started washing dishes with Hyatt, actually, nearly 40 years ago. So 10 years in Michael, right? So, I worked for Hyatt at the first part of my life. So really was brought up as a Hyatt food and beverage person. Then traveled around Australia, worked for some of the big companies like Sheraton in those days. I worked on a beautiful luxury island in the Great Barrier Reef called Hayman Island. Then I ventured overseas and worked in the Middle East, and ultimately the end of those, may not be the end, but as of now, it's 14 countries later, I'm in Zurich. Previously, I lived in Asia for a long time, and I was for 10 years Vice President Food and Beverage for Starwood Hotels for Asia Pacific. Then I moved here to Europe and joined FRHI, which was Fairmont Raffles Swissôtel, and then we were bought by Accor, and been here for 6 years. So I'm here next door to Michael in Zurich, and we've captivated each other in a business sense.
Very good tagline, that is.
Yeah, exactly.
So Captivate.
As he's mentioned Captivate, so I guess I'll pick that story up, as that was the second part of your question. So what happened was that, as you know, because of the impact of the health crisis, many corporate companies restructured their corporate offices. And my role that I had with Hyatt was got rid of August 2020. At that time, Martin and I knew each other because we were at one time in the same office, different companies, of course, but we knew each other. I would say to talk to, but that was about, in passing, that was about the limit of that. Then when that happened, Martin and I started talking because I created the hospitality support, or food and beverage support forum it was at that time. And I asked Martin if he would support us, and Martin very kindly said yes. And we started to talk a lot more. And what we discovered is that we shared a lot of common beliefs around hospitality, in the fact that previously the financial model for it clearly showed that the way the business was operating was not good financially, because if you look at how many hospitality businesses became bankrupt and closed very quickly,
Yeah.
meant that either there were some people at the top who were paid an awful lot of money and draining any profitability, or that the business model that was in place meant that they couldn't survive beyond many days because of cash flow purposes. My belief is that it's the latter one, that because of competing with price and not really having a big enough margin because rents were high and all of this sort of thing, that it meant that businesses are closed. Now, we both felt that this should change. And also we knew that to bring this change, there needed to be further changes. For example, the end of greenwashing, the end of companies saying, hey, we're going to save the planet. And really, there was really not a lot going on. It was just all words, marketing, but no sincerity, authenticity around the background of that. And both Martin and I believe that it is possible to make changes, and very quick changes, to food and beverage operations and restaurant and bar operations, to make them do less damage to the planet in terms of carbon footprint and in terms of better quality ingredients and this sort of thing. And the other thing that we had in common is that we wanted to really design concepts that had that rooted in. So they had, through the DNA, they had trackability of materials, design taking into account whether the replaceability and trackability of those, and at the end of the shelf life there was a disposable way of getting rid of those items in a good way. And to operate, they were optimized, so they were set up that they could flex and adapt depending on demand, with a balance of technology, but also in terms of the way that the smart kitchens, connected technology, the way that the whole floor space was designed and set out. And from those conversations, we decided that we had a lot of common connection there, and created Captivate. And I'll let Martin tell the rest of the story from his side now.
Right. I don't know if there's much more of that to tell, but without doubt, I think, we may have very similar backgrounds, but at the same time, we've got some different disciplines as well. So there's a lot of complements there. And but we certainly do agree on the focus towards the planet. I've always been a little bit afraid that it's a bit too cliche, right? Sustainability, like Michael said, greenwashing or whatever. But so we've got to position it in the right way and get people to understand that we really mean it and we really think it and we live it. I think traditionally in hotels, and work for some great brands, we are some of the worst when it comes to waste. And I don't just mean waste as in rubbish, I mean wasting so many things. And it could be energy, it could be water, it could be obviously waste products as well. But even, labor and labor costs, we have too many people when we could improve productivity. And I think, like Michael said, what we would like to do is have the option, and we know we can't shove it down everybody's throat, so to speak, but we can talk a little bit more sensibly and a little bit more with experience, right? So we know what was done wrong in hotels, and we really think it can be put right very easily. And I think
if anybody knows, I think it's definitely you two.
Well, I hope so, yeah. And there's definitely a massive future. Everyone has to be in this space, right? It's just the way the world is going. It's inevitable. So we want to make sure that we're there to help support and to create some great concepts, like Michael said, and many other things that we're doing too.
I think that's great because, like Michael said, a lot of companies decided to take this green, like you called it greenwash. I think that's a great name. It was literally just an initiative that they put some of their CSR budget towards it. And let's say, okay, we want to go green, and let me buy some straws made of cassava. Yeah. And there you go, we're green now, but then nothing else would change. And, especially, you see a lot of that in the Middle East. It started a big, there was a big drive when it comes to the, to this green approach. But then once you actually start digging into it, it's mainly a CSR initiative rather than a target, which is great to see the initiative that you guys are, taking, and you actually taking it to heart and starting it from scratch like that, right?
Absolutely.
So great.
Well, someone's got to, right? I think the other thing to take note of is that if you look across the world, all the governments are also saying, look, the only way out of this mess right now is through, sustainable the economy. And if you look at the UK, I think in 2030, I believe, if I recall correctly, the government has allocated a lot of funding to biodiverse farming or organic farming, to try and get farming methods to be done in the right way. And I think, and I know Martin agrees as well, one of the things that has to end is that we treat food like it's worthless, right? We treat food like it's nothing. And when you look at an animal, for example, that becomes food on the plate, that animal has gone through a whole life experience, most likely farmed, in a factory, in a factory farm, had a lot of stress, a lot of pain, unhappy, died, and then somebody puts it in the bin and don't treat that whole animal with respect. And that's a major part of it as well. We need to make sure that we value and we treat things in the right way. Same as our vegetables. We spray them with pesticides. They go to the, they're picked and they're sprayed again so that apples will last for example, they'll last a year and a half, because they spray them with this gas. We eat them, and then we wonder why we have cancers and things like this. And we need to start, growing sensibly. We all know about bees being wiped out. Multiple scientific reasons for doing it. There is not one, but I think that, again, the one thing that for me, the health crisis has taught us is perhaps nature is trying to tell us a message here, which is that we need to work with nature, get closer to nature, and be closer, keeping food and the ingredients as close to that as possible, instead of, interfering and chemically changing compositions and things. So this is, a major part. Just want to be clear, I'm not a tree hugger, not trying to,
but you have some.
We do eat fish. So even though there's a great move I love the whole vegan vegetarian movement. I mean, there's so much great food that we get to eat that we may not have even eaten before, because we normally eat our meat and veg, right? And,
exactly. It's if you forget about your staples.
I mean, let's look at water. I mean, water is crazy. There's a lot of the world, I think 2030 again is going to be without water. Water's drying up in many places. And you have to feed, I think something like 280 liters or gallons of water for a 4-ounce burger or something like this, when you include growing of the corn.
It's something ridiculous, right?
So we have to change. Right?
But you have some initiative though, for example, for the food wastage, like you have some app like Good to Go or something like this, that restaurant can use when they have leftover food, like to avoid to throw it in a bin. People can just buy it for cheaper, and so you can see that there is a movement that is starting a bit.
Too good to go though, I think, is a step too far. To be honest with you, I mean, in my experience, I've done many audits. I've even done waste audits, and when you think about hotel buffets, for example, the amount of food that goes in the bin, right? The amount of food that goes in the bin. So you can weigh all the food you want, and you can say, we're thrown out, 40, 50 croissants this morning from breakfast, or whatever, pastry from breakfast, whatever. But that's not going to change. You did, because you had a system that told you. It's not going to change because you want a display that still looks good, right? And so Too Good to Go picks that food items up, but actually, in my opinion, there shouldn't be that level of wastage in the first place. It should be much better controlled and much better reacted to.
But it's also supermarkets. So it's not only restaurants, but you also have supermarkets. So I think it's
true.
But I think what Michael is saying is you want to treat the root of the problem, not how to deal with,
of course, to avoid
with the byproduct of the problem, right? The byproduct is the actual waste, but then you want to attack the root of the problem and eradicate it, right?
Exactly. Or at least reduce it to a reasonable amount, right? So it's going to be a challenge.
And of course, until we get there, we obviously are conscious of the organizations and systems in place, but everything is, a lot of these are driven by local governments as well, what you can do, safety of food and leftover food. But yeah, absolutely, but you're right, it's eliminate better than treat the symptoms, right?
Yeah, but I think, it's just, I have a question now, obviously related to COVID. Obviously, that was our next question, actually, that Leo will take care of. But just a question based on that. So COVID decimated the hospitality industry, right? It decimated F&B. Maybe decimated is a bit harsh, but in some places isn't, right? How to now, how do you see, the way I look at it, this is all great, but businesses right now are just trying to pay their bills, right? Trying to stay open, trying to keep their employees, trying to, to ensure that the losses are not as bad and they can survive over the next, for the foreseeable future. How do you see that? I mean, pandemic obviously affected the balance between trying to achieve, carbon neutral, to obviously save on waste and all this kind of stuff. But I think the F&B industry, the focus, especially for the owners and the focus has changed now to a financial approach, right? Rather than, I think he kind of he put a step back on the whole approach of green and sustainability, right?
Yeah. Do you want to answer that, Martin?
We can both answer that as well.
We can both answer.
Yeah, what I think is that it won't put necessarily a hold or prevent the focus on being responsible and doing the right thing. I think, in fact, it's emphasized the fact that is an important part of life as well. So, yeah, without decimate is a tough word, but you're right, in many areas it is. But I think what it has done as well is made us realize, again, if you're going back to wastage, and again, I don't just mean food, we now rethink the way we do business, and maybe we staff more appropriately, and we have a clearer focus on what our business model is all about. That said, we still are an experience-driven business, right? And we have to make sure that we still give great experience, and we have the concepts, and we cater to the needs, but we just change the way we do things. And Mr. Butler will add to that for sure.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the governments actually before I get into that. I find it shocking, to be truthful with you, that we have some really intelligent, bright people in this world. Many of these people guide governments and leaders, and there was not a smarter way of handling this from the outset. For example, I know that many people were calling for testing quite early on and saying, look, at least if we do testing for everybody, the people at greatest risk can stay at home and the business and the world can still trade. So I think, if we go back to where that originated from, I think, in my opinion, yes, we need to keep people safe. Yes, COVID is very important, but I think the impact on that, when you consider human beings, that we are a connective type of person. We like to be near each other. We like to drink. We like to share. We like to tell each other stories. I think that there could have been a smarter and a better way of dealing with that. And I think those ways were not explored in a serious way. And I think many people, many chefs, celebrity chefs, were saying very early on to governments, and you've got Andrew Riggy in New York, who's been a very vocal person saying that, the way that government is handling, government in terms of the US, but equally globally is handling COVID is not the most optimized way to protect businesses. And I think that's something that should have been challenged, and better outcomes should have been sought. So as a result of that, of course, we now have a situation where there's some countries where they paid furlough, but nevertheless, if you're paying furlough, the employers still have to pay national insurance and tax on that, and they've got no revenue coming in, and they're going further into debt. You've got landlords who you're seeing the burden is being put on them to negotiate and accept a reduction in rent, and if they don't find a way, of course, the business isn't going to pay, and that's going to result in further closures and more job losses. So I think that's, if we start there, then when you look at the operation, you imagine you're a business, you have very little cash flow coming in, you've got debts building up. What are you going to do? You're going to focus on everything to survive. You're going to do whatever you can do to survive. And the one thing I will say that I think has been very fantastic, and what I love about hospitality is you've seen a lot of creativity come out of that. You know, you've seen restaurants that have, you know, really embraced, you know, delivery, really embraced retail, tried to do dishes that people can order and pick up and collect home, you know, and take home and finish and cooking. You've even seen some instances of, you know, again, the chef for a restaurant will cook the dishes that the guests that were going there really loved, and they will, on YouTube, for example, cook those dishes with the people, those ingredients. So you get that connection still going on. So I think in many ways, I think we've been in more pain than we needed to be. But I also think out of that, we will come out much better, much stronger. And as Martin said just now, I think we'll be more careful about the way that we operate. We will, I think, you know, for example, when we're looking at the business model, financial model, we will ensure that it makes sense in lean times. You know, we'll make sure that it is optimized. We'll use technology greater. I don't know if you remember, Carlos, because when you're working in hotels as well, you know, if you ever mentioned that there was going to be some technology of, you know, that the guest would have to use technology rather than be in front of a person, that was really frowned upon, right? It was a no-go, right? No-go.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, of course, the one
that was the opposite.
Yeah. Now, the one good thing that's come out of it is that you're seeing businesses embrace technology. So I think providing we keep that sensible, i.e. we don't overload industry with technology, and we only use technology that makes a positive difference to the guest experience and helps the team and helps the business be more efficient, I think we will come out of this in a good way.
So, Michael, you were saying that you saw some positive, you know, that came out of the COVID, of the pandemic. You feel that there is some, you feel that there is some stuff that will that you will get out from here, like that foresee for the future.
Sorry,
that we stay.
Well, I think we will see the QR code reinvented. I think because it's a bit unpolished. Definitely. I think that most likely we will see that made a bit more smoother. I definitely think self-order, self-pay as a choice is here to stay. You know, the guest will decide what type of service they want. I think that will definitely be here. I mean, you'll remember, and we remember when we were working, you know, you would see guests sit at a table just with their staring at their mobile phone, and it was almost an interference that they had to be served by a person. Yes. Because at that time, the technology wasn't in there that the guest could self-order, self-pay. So I think, you know, this as a choice will be good. I think I do believe that there will be many locations, and particularly hotels, where you will actually be able to go into a bedroom and check out and have zero interaction with a person. If you didn't want to have it. So I think that type of thing will be there. Contact light, I think, will remain. I think we'll probably see more of the, you know, the automatic openings of doors and cupboards and surfaces. I think this type of stuff will remain. And above all, what I do think will remain here for good is the cleanliness checks and the standard cleaning and the chemicals that they're using to make sure, and of course improved upon with the lights that they use and the fogging, etc. I think we'll see improvements, but I think we will be more sure that when we stay in a hotel, the room will be cleaner than it ever was clean before, and it was clean in the first place.
True,
right? Now it's going to be viral clean. So I think these things will be here to stay.
I think another positive, like you mentioned before, as one of the biggest waste problems there is hotel buffets, right? I mean, they used to be so popular in all these brunch kind of thing that used to happen. Food everywhere, the amount of waste I don't think that's ever going to happen again. I mean, some countries still haven't forbidden it, but you look at places like in the Middle East and Europe and all that, it doesn't happen anymore, right? I think that's you save cost.
It's very location specific as well, because, you know, in essence, people are greedy, right? They eat with their eyes and they love abundance. And, you know, there are markets that are a lot driven by that a lot more than others. Here in Europe, it's not such an issue, but like you said, Middle East, some parts of Asia, definitely, I don't think it'll disappear. I think it might change in the way we do things, and let's hope it's not as exaggerated as it was. But people sometimes just assume, especially at the beginning of this, will the buffet be gone forever? I don't think you can generalize that, but I think we will have a more sensible approach to it.
Yeah, more protective,
better managed
mechanisms. Yeah, there you go.
Better managed, I think, is what will happen. And what I do hope is that, that because there is a focus on sustainability, it's here. It's here whether we like it or not. And the one thing I do think that people will care about is what's going in the bin. So I think out of that, perhaps there'll be greater creativity around those items, how they're reused, recycled, or how they're not created in the first place. I do think that we will see that.
Yeah. And I think, obviously to move on, and my next question is, how do you see the F&B industry, rebounding from all of this? What do you see the next challenges and trends to be? You mentioned a few already, but one thing that I always find interesting and sad at the same time is when let's say the UK, which is a country very close to my heart. 6% of the population work in the F&B, right? They represent, I think it's between 3 and 4%. If not more, of the total, GDP. But the focus, when you mentioned earlier, like the government is giving grants and supporting farming and all this for this green initiative and sustainability. But when it comes to the hospitality industry, it's always kind of, the service industry always suffers, and you don't really see enough support. There's always just, okay, here's a little bit, here's the furlough, here's, a 25K grant if but you never see enough coming from the government to support what is such a big part. I mean, service industry is huge. I mean, we say the UK, but you go Spain, Portugal, Greece, Italy, it's a massive part of their economies, right? So, and we see the same everywhere.
I think this will change. I think, I think as we saw in the 2008 sort of recession, a lot of F&B, a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars closed, and what merged out of that was actually much better. The experience was much better. It was more of an emotional connection. There was storytelling. You saw the cultural melting pot where, mum and dad came from different countries, and the children from those parents created dishes where it combined both cultures and created a fantastic story and experience. And I think what we will see come out of this is ecotourism. I think what you'll see is that tourism will come back because you will see that cultural influence come through in experiences for people visiting different areas of the country or coming from overseas. So I think it will, and that will get investment from governments, to be honest with you. So I think from here, I think there will be investment, but I think the way the investment happens will be done in not such a broad way. It will be, if you are running a business and you are, you're taking care of I'm going to use taking care of the planet because it's easier to put it in that way. But if you're doing things that are ethical, genuine, authentic, and protecting the planet, helping the community, improving the environment, and bringing people to the area, then I think you're going to get a grant, right? And I think you'll get help.
And you can see this in places like Saudi, right? With all these new projects that are going.
Yeah.
Places like this,
incredible, right? So.
Yeah.
And do you see, so for the future, just the last part of that question, do you see, okay, so the businesses now, they're desperate for business, right? Like, the venues, hotels and all that. Do you see that leading to a price war that will further, you worsen the one very fact that you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation that put businesses in a place of bankruptcy and the fact that made them close, which is very low cash flow, not enough to survive more than a couple of months without revenue. Do you feel that there will be, due to the desperation of the need of businesses after so many months closed, do you feel like you will drive a price war that ultimately will benefit the consumer, but will again put the businesses in dire straits? Do you feel that will happen?
Who's that question directed at?
You're asking for a crystal ball decision there. I don't know whether we'll agree on that. I would like to think no. I would like to think that there's a sensibility, and that there is, well, unfortunately, there's a lot of restaurants and business that have closed already. So there's not even the capacity that there was. But I think that the hunger to dine will be there, and let's hope they can, the capacity isn't too much. But that's my crystal ball doesn't really work.
It doesn't.
How
about yours, Michael?
I have a crystal ball. No, I don't. But what I believe will happen is I think that the market will be split. I think you will get definitely your mainstream businesses compete on price initially. I think that will happen. I think it's inevitable. But what I do think is that in that sort of luxury market, I do not think you will see anything like that. Actually, I think you'll see the opposite. I also think that what you'll see is an expanding of moving away from discounting and moving away to doing things properly. When I say properly, I mean selling food for its true worth, giving the experience and the value through that experience rather than through price. I think you will see a larger part of the segment going in that direction. And I also think once government start taxation for fat and sugar, this type of stuff which they're talking about, I think you will see more people shift to that well-being, health, and good for you food experiences. So I think what you'll see is a split in the market share. Of course, you will still get your discounters, but I think you will see more people move into doing things in an authentic and proper, organic, sustainable way. And if you do this, by the way, you can't do it by discounting because you'll be in losses.
And what we really do is encourage people, anyone who's listening, not to get into it, because we all know price wars, nobody wins, right?
Nobody. Ultimately, not even the consumer, because it only leads for less quality, which then, and it always ends in tears, So
it's not just that. What about the producers? If it's the farmers who are really pinned down on price. If the food can't be sold for a fair price, actually it's the producer that's the one that's been hurt the most, right? They're the ones that you get these large corporations that say, unless you put the price down here, we're not buying from you, we'll buy from somewhere else. And
it becomes a vicious circle.
Yes, exactly.
If people really do genuinely care about community and taking care of that community, I would say that they should only go and buy and eat and drink at places that are following, healthy, responsible way of managing food and restaurants, and having a story with that's going to be emotionally connecting and one you want to share and tell other people about. So
the ethical approach to hospitality, right? But one thing that you mentioned, guys, and I think we can take away from this, one of the things that we, to be honest, I've learned a lot. Like it's great to hear great opinions like yours, But one thing that I think we can all take away from is that I think the need for a great experience will definitely come back, because we are all craving for it.
Sure. Exactly.
And I think that's going to help I think it's going to help the hospitality industry, rebound. Is people's need for the human connection as well at the same time, right?
Yeah, I actually think that's one of the most positive things that has come out of this last year, that people realized how important people are to each other, right? Relationships, connecting. I mean, I'm very lucky because I've enjoyed networking and socializing and being in touch with people all the time. And what I did notice, though, was so many more people wanted to get in touch. There was a hunger to talk to other people, and how important relationships are. So you're right. I think we're all busting to get out to restaurants and see our friends and colleagues. And we should never forget the fact that, this has been a hard time for everybody. We should remember that moving forward, how important people are to other people as well, and how important our relationships are.
I think there's always a silver lining, right? Every cloud, there's a silver lining.
Something we've noticed.
Go ahead.
Something we've noticed, and that's why we're Captivate Hospitality Partners, not just Captivate, to be honest with you, is that a lot of people are reaching out and saying, look, how can we work together to create something different and, to develop something and, where we both can be winners out of that. We both can get something from this. And I don't know if you remember, I know Carlos, you will definitely remember, and I know Martin does 100%. But if you went in the past to somebody and say, let's collaborate, they would always be a winner and a loser. There would always be somebody who's took the hit on the P&L, right? So now people are talking in a different way. They're saying, how can we work together for the better of both of us? And I think that's a really positive, good thing that's come out of this whole thing. And that's why
win-win situation, yeah.
Yes.
It brought us all together.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So there you go. It's nice to to have a feeling of positivity among all this.
Absolutely, have to, right?
Feeling of I don't know, helplessness sometimes.
Yeah.
True. And what's your plan for the future, Captivate Hospitality?
Oh, we're going to be booming, skyrocketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of people out there that as soon as we do our major release, so when it all happens, I mean, so far it's been very, very encouraging. And we're really talking to people from all parts of the world, the whole globe, really, which is great. And again, that's, the value of networking and having the contacts and things. So
an experience.
I think the future is bright. And like Michael said, we are not just about ourselves. We're about win-win. And whether it's a client or whether it's somebody we collaborate with, the whole idea is that we do something great, we do something better for everyone, including the planet, right? And everybody wins. That's one of the main things. So I think the future's looking good, I think.
Can I just add a reason why I think also that things will probably there'll be a lot more people like Martin and I who are working this way. And that's that I think these large corporations will want to remain payroll risk free. They will not want to burden their payrolls with the same thing that they did pre-COVID.
Great point.
Simply so that they can adapt and flex those payroll costs as well. And also, if you think about it, let's be truthful. If you're working in the same job for 5 years, for example, it's very difficult to be as fresh as you were on the first day you started, right?
Of course.
I also think it's good for business because, if a business will choose to work with people who can bring something that benefits that business, and that obviously the person who's going to that business to work for them will also gain because they will have cross exposure to culture and a different way of working. And so I think that we'll see more independence, if you will, work, and I think that's going to be the future. So I actually think the future's bright for anybody that's got an entrepreneurial spirit, that wants to help other businesses succeed, and is keen to contribute in a positive way. So I think just to sort of bring it back to positivity, I think as we emerge out of this whole COVID thing, I think we have a very exciting future. This is the way I see the world.
Yeah, I feel the same, and it's great to to end on that point, actually, to end on with smiles and positivity and
with positivity, yeah,
and hope for the future. I think a lot of people need this positivity. I read every time you guys post, and obviously I follow your your hospitality support group and all that, and I see a lot of you guys emphasize a lot on that, on the support in each other. One thing I like to see, I think we all do, is that you are there for people that that need somebody to be there for them. I mean, we didn't discuss it until now. The walk for India that you did was an amazing, amazing initiative.
Yeah, tiring, I can tell you. Actually, I will tell you, it was harder than I thought it was going to be. But but look, I tell you what, I put myself through a lot of physical pressure because it's a long way to walk in that period of time.
How many kilometers was it?
I can't remember now how many it was. Was it? I can't remember. 260 something.
Really?
Anyway, I was around 37, 38 kilometers a day, something like this.
Wow.
But I wanted to do it because I worked in India. I think the people are fantastic there. And I could see that it was impacting, it was impacting people. But what I want to tell you, though, is something that I discovered in this. Actually, although there were quite a number of people that took help in terms of money support, what most of them wanted was a job. They wanted to earn that money. Actually, they didn't want charity. They would And I think that's probably what I would do differently next time if I was going to do something like this. I think I would want to find a way of helping somebody get a job or sponsor a job, i.e. the money goes, maybe contributes to work or contributes to training or contributes to something like that, because I think people don't want handouts, and that was something that came very clear, that people, all they wanted was the chance of a job.
Yeah, of course.
And it's amazing. I'm sure you felt, but I'm sure ultimately you felt, and for you, I mean, I know you're not the type of guy to do this just for, to market yourself. I mean, I was following you every day, and I saw that, you actually did this out of the bottom of your heart. You really wanted to help those people, and you went out of your way, and you found some difficulties, right? I mean, I saw the videos. Your feet were destroyed on the day 4 or day 5 or something. I mean, I'm sure it was hard, but if only we had more people trying to do a similar thing, right? It doesn't have to be necessarily woke, but if only our governments listen to the effort some of us go to help other people, and at least try to help a bit more, right?
Yeah, what I hope is that if people want to help people, is what I said, I think, it's better. This is my thinking at the moment. If you can give somebody a chance of a job, even if it's 1 or 2 days work, a month or whatever, you will at least give them feeling of a self-worth. Because one of the big things is with people who are out of work for so long, is they feel this is why the hospitality community was created. And in fact, we're going to launch our own platform, our whole own platform out of LinkedIn.
Outside of LinkedIn. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with its own apps on Android and Apple, and it's going live very, very soon.
You've been busy, guys, huh? I can tell.
Yeah. So, what I think, if people want to help people, find somebody that's not working in hospitality and give them 1 day's work and pay them, right? Because, by working, you make people feel valuable, and you give them, they feel they earn that money. And also the same thing, they're connected back to the industry, right? So if you give somebody, I don't know, there were some people I was sending like, $600 a month, for example. Mm-hmm. You send them $600 a month. Actually, they're not connected to nothing, right? There's a transaction. But if that $600 went for an employer, for example, and the employer then gave that person that amount of work, that person would have felt much more valuable. And that's what they were asking. Actually, I can tell you there was not one person that wanted the charity. Actually, they wanted a job. And I think, so what I would say is, if there's any hospitality business, even if you have a chance, if you have a full-time employment position, you're better seeing if you can give it to 2 or 3 people who can work and come to your business, because you will make those 2 or 3 lives feel better valued with that little bit of money, but also they're back in the industry, connected to people. Because we are, as Martin said, we are people, right? We love to be connected to each other, right?
That's the spirit of hospitality, right?
Definitely. That's what we like.
Perfect. Well, I think, guys, thank you so much. It's been an enlightening conversation. Thank you for joining us. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
For the future, we look forward to hearing more about
Thank you,
Captivate.
Martin. Thank you, Michael.
In the coming days. Okay.
Lovely.
Okay.
Take care.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
That was amazing.
That was so nice, really. I loved it.
It was a really nice conversation. You can see that they have so much passion and so much knowledge. They really know what they're talking about. They really, they have this love for people. They're really hospitality people, right?
Yeah, you can feel it. I mean, they really have this thing about ethical,
the ethical approach to hospitality.
The ethical approach, yeah, exactly.
I mean, especially obviously we always use Dubai as our example, and UAE, right, which is where we spent most of the last few years. But
Sure.
You know, they could learn a thing or two from watching this video, right?
Definitely.
And I learned, and I think we, you know, it's great. But there, you know, it was left with the feeling of this positivity, of this, you know, there is light at the end of the tunnel. We can do better. We will survive again. We will rebound
there is some
again,
positive.
right?
There is some positive about it, and that's the main thing, you know.
I think it's fantastic.
So I think they cracked the code.
I think they cracked the code 100%. So thank you again. Thank you. I mean, I think, you know, we should end this now on an amazing positive note. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Martin. You guys are amazing. Captivate Hospitality Partners. We will share all the details. We'll put the link here, right there. We'll share as well the hospitality support group on LinkedIn. Here it is, somewhere around here. Thank you guys for watching, and we see you next week.
Thank you.
Right?
See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.